Here's one problem. People can't seem to understand the difference between ego and narcissism. People think are the same thing or maybe different levels, but they're actually polar opposites. Ego is also either based on past accomplishments or at least an ideal self of future. Well, narcissism is the belief that you're better just because you are. That you shouldn't that being testing your power, actually using it, you shouldn't have to do it. And it's incoherent. Whatever puts you in a negative positive light. While gives truth, while ego can give you a responsibility to give truth to the stuff you tell yourself. They're set goalposts for yourself. The model self. You're a model self. And like ego, based on stuff that data, truth, and fact. Ego makes you want to show off though. Makes you want to inflate your value and keep it vague so no one could come up with it. Go more an emotional turn. They say it means nothing. It also flips goalposts and standards. Makes you think you shouldn't have to again use it or show it. Which functionally takes away value. Ego, it kind of like more practical knowledge about yourself and your abilities. Narcissism is more of a demand for praise and try and separate. It also makes you think that form and function, that beauty and function are two separate things. And plus makes things like beauty seem like vague standards on a objective standards. So, but I really say you're just not beautiful enough. But also saying then you're an upholder. You see how narcissists are so incoherent, factually incoherent, but emotionally consistent. Spock, it is the pure authority. Like to me, I'm a doctor. They don't give you the sign, the data. The appeal to authority. Narcissists love the appeal to authority, especially low down narcissists. The approval of a higher authority. Egotists look more on data and non-bias.
We've all been in arguments. And it wouldn't be an argument if you didn't believe that you were right and they were wrong. But aren't we all wrong sometimes? No one is right about all the things all the time. Research shows that admitting that we might be wrong can actually help us be better friends, happier people, and more effective advocates for our beliefs. This is called intellectual humility, and it's a gift. Not the kind you're born with, but the kind you can give yourself. So why don't we? Why is it so hard to admit that we might be wrong? Our ideas, assumptions, and experiences weave together to form our picture of the world. See why it's painful to admit that something we believe in is wrong. One tug on the thread, and it can feel like our whole sense of self is unraveling. In fact, studies show that our brains actually react to attacks on our beliefs the same way as threats to our physical well-being. Our natural human tendency is to avoid those threats, surround ourselves with people who think just like us. It doesn't matter how smart or well-educated you are, anyone could fall into these traps. But we can break out of these bubbles. Our ideas don't need to limit us. We just need to remember that some of the things we know are wrong or incomplete. It doesn't have to feel like a failure. It can feel
If something doesn't make sense, there's missing data. There's a factor that missing.
like a relief. We can let go of the ideas that were holding us back from growth. This is one of the key features of intellectual humility, that willingness to accept and admit that you might be wrong. Research shows that people who practice intellectual humility make more thoughtful decisions, have stronger connections with their friends and partners, and are more tolerant, which could lead to a happier life. We live in a time where there's pressure to appear like you're always right. But recognizing an incompleteness in our knowledge isn't weakness or ignorance. It's the opposite. Every day into an opportunity to learn and grow. In fact, people who practice intellectual humility are shown to be better at recognizing persuasive arguments. That means The scientific method asks us to test every idea, question every theory, and that discipline is responsible for much of the explosive progress that has defined the last 2 centuries. Intellectual humility is the same principle applied to the individual, constantly refining your understanding of the world and yourself. The person you are now only exists because the person you were was willing to grow into something new. Intellectual humility is that willingness. It allows us to constantly search through our understanding of the world and bit by bit make it better.
Ego is the building of yourself, and narcissism versus egotism is what narcissism is. I don't need to work to become a diamond. I'm already a diamond. But actually said in the show, yeah, this is a common thing told to girls, which is why girls actually feel the symptoms of narcissism. Again, look at the symptoms. Ego says, listening to the girls are common from girls or women online. They show lack of empathy, sympathy. Listening to the very women themselves, their own side of the story, why they filed for divorce because it was all their feelings about them. And by the way, people who say like I do all the emotional labor, about I think there are people who are too self-absorbed in their own often much imagined drama to even bother to care what other people might be going through. How could he possibly know that he can't read people's minds? Doesn't it? And the reason men abandons them after the divorce because the point of the divorce to go your separate ways, not to make him a slave. Everything they described as abusive. He loses access to his home, his children, his life, his bank account, his time, his labor. Yeah, he should abandon them. That's abusive. That's slavery. Also, yeah, another different ego narcissism is he's the emotional intelligence. When you hear about that, that usually lacks logical intelligence. If you don't want someone to leave, don't kick them out. And see how moral goalposts flipped from the deadbeat dad narrative to when Bradfield point out who fought for divorce more? Even reaction abuse, that's excused by narcissists. That's exactly what we said the wife is to blame do by blaming themselves. Even domestic violence now flip we see whatever in progressivism about dreamers and schemers. Again, Evan, people who live in reality versus people who only dream in a fantasy world. That's another key difference between right wing victimhood and left wing victimhood. I could go down to basics, or should I save it for another video on the difference, go into detail? Give me a like if you want me to go on to detail about the difference between right wing victimhood and left wing victimhood. A problem to be solved or a claim to power.